The live also I given that.
Yeah.
Already the YouTube live is going on. So shall we start now?
Yep.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Here India is good evening. I think good morning for Tom D. Block in their country. Uh, Today we have a lecture meeting on blockchain use cases, making IoT technology work for the people. Today our speaker Tom D. Block is a solution architect, chairman of the AIO TIWG and a distributed ledger technologies. We're going to, first of all, I welcome Tom D. Block. He accept to give the uh, technical lecture on the blockchain use cases. So once again, I welcome Tom D. Block.
Thank
And
you.
then
Thank you.
So I want to introduce.
IoT. And then actually that Institution of Engineers India, Tamil Nadu State Center, it's a 100 years old institution. We are doing that this type of lecture meetings in different topics, not only the blockchain, computer area. It's we are regularly we are doing, and all the 15 divisions, that is civil, mechanical, chemical engineering, all other engineering also. Today we have in computer division, that is it is not a computer, it's a inter disciplinary. So all the put together in the blockchain, making IoT technology work for the people. So now I request PS Praveen to introduce our today's speaker, Mr. Tom D. Block.
Yeah.
Praveen, over to Praveen. Kindly take over that.
So thank you, Ramdas, and it's a great pleasure after a long time. I think during this COVID period, we haven't had an opportunity to do a blockchain session for Institute of Engineers, and today is the first after the very long time. And I invited Tom D. Block, my friend for a long time, from Belgium, and he's a very well-versed solution architect. And first I came to know about him is during the time when he used to work for a firm which did a massive work on what you call blockchain for electricity billing in Belgium, and it's very good at blockchain solutions. And he's a solution architect. And I'll just give you a brief about blockchain of Tom D. Block. Uh, Tom D. Block is a the time when I came to know he was a solution architect at Settlement. It's a very great firm that. Okay, I'm sorry. So that's a company which has a lot of revolutionary products, which Tom D. Block was a part of it. And then he went on to move to the DAO, which is an advanced version of a blockchain called Data Broker DAO. And that had a very interesting set of what they call scenarios where all the data, IoT data, would go into one place, and that would, be given to whoever is required on a pay-per-view kind of basis. But again, a revolutionary part of moving IoT data on blockchain. And then he's a founding member of Belgium Blockchain Task Force, again in Belgium. He's a practitioner of DLT blockchain, and He went on to do ING, cards and payments DLT solution architecture, where the ING cards domain, the project was, non-regression testing. So that's again a very fantastic product in payment services. And then EU operations is with Nearcom EOD, where software lifecycle and quality assurance products are managed. And finally, he's a co-founder of Carry On Food. There again, he's an enterprise architect. But the very exciting part is that he founded the organization AIOTI in European continent, where most relevant things he integrated. Alliance Internet Things of Innovation was established in 2015, and then went on to build services for COVID-19 crisis impacts for supply chain and food safety, and also went on to build a firm called Farm to Fork Ecosystem Innovation with task force and a new channel at farmtofork.market. So with that few words, I want to give the platform back to my friend Tom D. Block, a wealth of information, a person who has implemented a lot of blockchain solutions in Europe and the US. I'm pleased to introduce Tom T. Block to go ahead and start his lecture. And it will be sectioned as every 30 minutes, one break would be there. And Tom would allow for question and answers at that point of time. And then once that is over, then he will continue with the next module. So we'll have 4 modules with breaks in the middle. And then finally to conclude around 6 o'clock today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen who have joined today. And we look forward to a great session by Tom D. Block. Tom, over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Praveen. Thank you also for the second opportunity to speak in front of the Indian audience. I remember last time was like a year ago when I was in USA at that moment. We spoke about the energy implementation in the energy domain. So thank you again for this second invitation. So today, well, ever since we spoke last year on that event, I think we all live in a different world. And more than ever, people need us and need technology to improve their lives. We all suffer from similar things on a global scale. As we speak, I mean, the world is totally not the same like a year ago when we last spoke. So that would make this session even more relevant. Also knowing that you guys are a group of well-respected and senior engineers from a place in the world where we know is a lot of technological stack. So if we have to build global solutions, we definitely count on your region to contribute to it. And if I can bring some understanding to the table today, so my purpose of today is first of all to enlighten and to, in some cases, abstract some complexity and point to opportunities and how this actually works in reality. So a bit away from a lot of promises in this space, but very few reality. So let's call it also in some points reality check. So because as I said, the world needs us and needs technology to work for people rather than corporates and so on. But anyway, some ideology is also a basis of my involvement in this space. But thank you for the introduction. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm sorry, I was on the last slide. So about today, just to give a bit of a structure about what you can expect. First of all, an agreement on what is IoT, because that evolved in the last 10 years. Of course, about blockchain. We're going to touch upon several use cases for what the most well, we start with the carrion food. Afterwards, we will evolve towards the ecosystem and the decentralized autonomous organizations, the architecture and business model. So decentralization, the big program of farm to fork in Europe and the world actually, and then the conclusions. And in the we will end with Ask Me Anything, but I want to state that we have both the Zoom and the YouTube chat, in which during the session, please, anyone who has a burning question, don't hesitate. Praveen will monitor the chats, and we will take the time during each of the breaks. We will have 4 breaks. In each of the breaks, we will review the questions and we will treat them upon the start of the next session. So I hope all your heads are a bit empty or free, let's say, because I promise there's going to be some complexity, but I trust the level of the audience, like Praveen explained me. We're all a bunch of engineers, so we are okay to geek sometimes, you know. So about who I am, because that's always, you know, when you start the presentation, you need to buy some credibility. Praveen already introduced me, so thank you for that. But if I have to define myself, first of all, my first role in life is I'm a father of 3 kids and godfather of 1. So that's definitely most important role, and that's also my main reason, or one of the main reasons, the most important actually, why I want to build these, you know, world improving solutions, because I want my kids to live in a better world, and I have the tools at hand, so I will, and I am deploying them to make them a better context. So professionally spoken, I have 20 years of R&D background, not from school, but from practice. I started in '99 to work as a junior tester for Panasonic. So Matsushita, the headquarter of Panasonic, they were deploying European GPS. So it was actually already in-car IoT in '99. I was very lucky to work with the Japanese, to start with the Japanese, because at that time, at the global scale, it was the Japanese who actually brought electronic and innovation to the world. Now things slightly changed, because it's the first time in these new technologies that the whole world, because it's open source, actually share the same version, let's say, on this specific. Otherwise, we were all in different versions in terms of innovation. Now, actually, so I start with Panasonic in testing, so end-to-end testing, quality and governance. And I went over like Swift, everyone knows Swift, the global payment network, but also public transport, medical, up until the big Schengen information system, which is actually Homeland Security in Europe. So all these different things, I've domains and verticals, I've seen them as an end-to-end tester. And as an end-to-end tester, you have to have, as well as understanding of the business, to understand the requirements, afterwards understand the functionalities, up until the technical stack, because we have to test it, so we have to understand everything. So that made me, after this 20 year of background in end-to-end testing, I have all these insights. I became naturally flow into a solution architecture role, in specialized in innovative technology and new things. The complexer it is, the better my brain loves it. Yeah, I have a special focus on data and ecosystems. So in the current role, to fast forward up to today, I'm not the founder, like Praveen mentioned, but I'm an elected chairman of one of the working groups. I will introduce the AOTI Alliance later. So it's the European Alliance for Internet of Things Innovation. I'm the chairman of the working group on distributed ledger technologies. Also task force leader on the farm to fork.market. It's a European ecosystem around farm to fork. Also co-founder of the carrionfood.com. That's a startup in France who actually implement all these innovative models. And in my, let's say, spare time, or at the passionate side of my life, I'm also experienced beer sommelier, but that's totally not related to the technology. But I kind of like defend old Belgium beer history in that. So yeah, that's more of a passion, but it's an outscaled hobby, let's say. And so what I would like to know, I kind of know from the introduction of Praveen, but I would appreciate if any of you in the Zoom chat, if you could just maybe just drop a line about your current role or your background in a few words, and if you have specific expectations or you want to touch upon specific subjects or domains, so we can actually include that into some of the examples. So then it would make this day actually even more interesting to you. Anyway, you can do it now or you can do it during the presentation. So feel free anytime to shoot into the Zoom chat or on YouTube. We can actually answer it during the sessions. So thank you for that. Now about the alliance I mentioned, it's a European alliance around Internet of Things innovation. It was founded in 2015. It's a partner of the European Commission, specific on Internet of Things, but it came quite wide because we will speak later on what is actually Internet of Things. It evolved also in the last 10 years. Our founding members, you will definitely recognize a few of them. They're not all, not at all European companies. Look at IBM. I know IBM is very powerful or very big in India also. It's definitely also an American company, but these are all companies who are active on the European continent. They are the founding members, and you have a lot of smaller companies below. I think we have about 160 members. For what I know, the SMEs, so the smaller companies, are actually bringing a lot of drive into that massive corporate stack. Now, about the structure of the company, the structure of the alliance. So it was initially grown out of mostly about research, European research agenda. And then you have these vertical working groups. Actually, they're representing a vertical industry. So you will recognize smart farming and food security, mobility, energy, smart buildings, and so on. Also smart cities, of course. So these are the verticals. And then at the horizontal, you have research and innovative ecosystems. And totally down below, you have the distributed ledger technologies. And you see this is cross-cutting. We call it transversal working group, because when we speak about a distributed ledger implementation, it never remains into one vertical. Of course, there are some isolated implementations or so, but mostly, for example, if you think about the main examples of today are about food safety. Of course, if you speak about food supply, it's not only in smart farming and food security, because it involves mobility, it involves energy, water, and of course the supply go to the demand side, and the demand side is in the smart cities. So it actually cross-cut all these vertical industries. So in a way, also, since the arrival and since these kind of visions in Europe, we also in a way reorganize this in an ecosystem way. So working group 2, innovative ecosystem, is about the human interface, let's say, while the distributed ledger technologies are actually the technological stack with involving enabling technologies and bringing business models and so on. I will speak about that later. And one of the most important works there for myself, and I think also for the Alliance, and in even widely spoken about an important blueprint here about what we call the single market. It's the main project, I would say, of the European Union. And we actually, few time ago, this architecture, it was born like a few years ago. It looks quite centralized in the image, but I will explain it later. It's a totally decentralized approach, and it involves the DLT, so the blockchain elements, which we will discuss today. But not only, it involves AI, big data, IoT, a lot of things. So this is the first time you see it now, probably. For today, you will see it a few times, and definitely in a follow-up of what you see today. If you go to deployments, this is definitely an oracle for you to anchor upon. So I will clarify more about that later. So that brings me to an initial question. I'm not going to ask the questions in the chat. I'm going to go a bit ahead. We have a lot to digest today. So just to have an agreement about what is IoT. Honestly, we are the IoT Alliance in Europe, but this is again an open question. It was recently asked even by leading people within the Commission towards the Alliance. Please define what is IoT, because at the start of the IoT project, it was maybe like 10 years ago when this was all about sensors and automation. And somehow the perception is still there that IoT is that thing about sensors. You know, people think it's IoT sensors. And then of course, automation, most of it in manufacturing maybe, or in whatever things people imagine. Now that kind of evolved a lot. So that's why I asked this question, because it evolved, as I mentioned, and so IoT stands for Internet of Things, but let's just, how you define a thing? A thing can be so many things, you know, so you can have so many ways of things. But if we have, first of all, an agreement of what is that thing, the T in IoT, I would claim, and we claim now, that data and a data set is also a thing. Of course, you have the sensors and the live data. That's the obvious thing, let's say. But you also have stuff like scripts or algorithms, and in later I will explain that these smart contracts, a lot of digital assets. We also have to consider them things. Even a ledger, being a very big list of history of audit, that thing is all, well, that's also a thing. So if you think about the Internet of Things, you have a lot of different technologies doing different things. So think about AI, these algorithms and so on, automation and assets and processes and all these things. We now speak about Internet of everything, not just a thing, Internet of everything. And then I even like more the IOP, which actually stands for Internet of People, because technology should work for people. And that's why we also have this, the title of today. So make IoT work for people, because we just don't do technology to do technology. We want technology to serve humanity, and even up to the individual level, it has to serve. If you think about aging well, it's a very important working group in our alliance. There are a lot of things. The Japanese are very strong also in assisting older people to have a quality of life and so on. A lot of automation, predictions, and all kind of services and so on. So yeah, that's so far clarification on the redefinition, let's say, of Internet of Things. That also data and data sets and algorithms and scripts and so on are also considered things. And if we all agree on that definition, we can imagine what is actually that Internet of Things. I claimed, and I repeat, that the distributed ledger within an organization it's also a thing connected with a lot of other things. So that's actually that Internet of Things. It's actually everything around us which is connected to that digital infrastructure. That's my claim, and I would really appreciate if any of you could counter me, or either way um, you ask questions or you claim your different understanding of what is IoT. I would really appreciate some interaction on that subject, because next thing I'm going to talk about is the simplified explanation of that different versioning in blockchain and so on. Do we have any questions so far, Praveen?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, okay, shoot.
So, uh, the IoT world is what you call now easily able to communicate on Wi-Fi. So I just was wanting to know what kind of common fabrics are there between the IoT world and the DLT world, because the DLT world works with some set of languages and IoT works with some set of languages, and what kind of languages work common for both actually?
What do you mean? Okay, the common language.
How IoT interacts with DLT, or what kind of languages are there which interact with DLT?
Well, the answer has 4 letters, and you see it on the screen. And
Okay,
it's the merge between everything.
okay,
So the answer is data.
okay.
Data is what is the common factor between all the different systems.
Mhm.
Um, so it actually, when you speak about connectivity and so on, I mean, there is no, it's independent from the connectivity. You mentioned IoT being on Wi-Fi. That's, I would counter that, because you have many different, and Wi-Fi is definitely not the most used connectivity on IoT. We have 3G, 4G, now 5G connectivity. We have LoRaWAN, Sigfox, narrowband, all kind of stuff. Depending on the use case, very wideband, low frequencies, whatever. So, but I'm totally not into connectivity. I think connectivity is a solution, is a challenge which is long time solved, and it evolved.
Okay.
But we have to beware that, because that was, I will also touch upon that. We all have the perception that everyone is, first of all, digitally transformed and
Yes.
connected, and that's not true. So when we think about solutions and we want to have impact on a global scale, we also, one of the main challenges is to also include people with no connection and not being digitized.
Okay.
And if you think about digital solutions, I mean, it's a big challenge. How you gonna connect to not digitized and not connected people, huh?
Yes,
Uh,
villages.
so it's more of a human thing. Apart from connection, I mean, you have different way to connect and so on. Anyway, there's also a big
Thank you.
human factor in all this. So yeah, apart from connectivity, if you ask what is the common factor between the different technologies, it's always data.
Okay.
Um, so yeah. Also, if we talk about if people talk about the blockchain industry, for example, honestly, that thing doesn't exist. There isn't such a thing like the blockchain industry,
Mhm.
or a blockchain platform, for example. It also, it if you talk about the blockchain platform, it's probably 80% platform, like, whatever platform, and then there is 20% of a blockchain component in the background. Um, so I claim there is no blockchain industry. DLT and blockchain are part of different industry. Now they are in the background of mainly every industry, but there isn't such a thing like, you know, the focus thing. So that's one of the reality checks.
Right.
It's always in combination with other things. It's as a standalone, it's nothing. It's dumb, actually.
Correct.
So anyway, we will touch upon that later. So anyone else with a question at this point? Because we're gonna jump into the subject of blockchain itself.
Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
Okay, good. Now, many times.
I have a question. I have a question. I have a question. Quick question.
Yes.
So the question is it possible to take 100% blockchain business model?
No,
It is from Able.
no.
I think you told that recently, just now, that there's nothing called blockchain industry. It's that all industries use blockchain for their solutions.
Yes, it's actually blockchain add
They enable.
certain value. It adds certain components, and it adds certain business models. But it's more like a module. Let's say it's a modular addition. It's an enrichment to existing technology, which enables certain things which were not possible before. If you mention, for example, if people think, and the most wrong perception about blockchain, that it is used for as a medium for storage and to share data, and that's totally untrue. It's a misperception that blockchain is a medium of storage. It's actually I think one of the most expensive and most complex mediums of storage, really. It makes only sense in very teeny use cases when you speak about something like a golden copy implementation. It means a very crucial, let's say, a parameter or a variable set which have to be shared between different systems. Then it's important that all these have that similar configuration. But we speak about one specific data set to configure multiple systems at the same time with the same configuration, for example. That's typically what we call a golden copy implementation. But beside that specific case, blockchain is not a medium to share data. If people think we are going to write things in a blockchain for everyone to see it in the same time and share whatever personal or non-personal data, it's nonsense. That's not a way that this infrastructure is useful at all. It's imagine about you duplicate all these things everywhere. You cannot update it, you cannot delete it. Anyway, so that brings me actually to the basics, because you make me jump forward, Praveen. But thank you for your questions.
Yes.
If anyone else has a question, please ask. I want to step back from that and just explain how. I think most of the people here, they know what is blockchain, but I just want to I just want to give the way I explain it, because I'm often giving also trainings about it. And actually the challenge is to step away from what people don't need to know.
Correct.
Like protocol and all these, whatever, call it mining and all these protocol stuff.
Complicated stuff.
Yes, people don't need to know the protocol on internet, how that, how this TCP IP and all these things, that's an engineering geek stack. What people need to know, so what is this? And the functional part, let's say. And the way I explain it, it's quite easy, actually. I compare it because most of the people know a shared a Google sheet, like Excel, but the Google version.
Correct.
If you share it between a group of people, everyone can write in it. You can even see if we share a shared Google sheet together, we can all write in it together, and you see the other writing. And so the difference between that element of a shared sheet and a distributed ledger or a blockchain is that there is a protocol in the background based on mathematics. So it's unbreakable protocol in the background, which actually enforce three things compared to the Google sheet. First of all, if you write in it, you are forced to write sequentially after the last line. So you cannot choose the position where you write. Automatically, you want to add a word to the sheet, it actually edits just behind the last line. And everyone, if two people submit in the same time, it will be in a sequence. So it's adding stuff always one after the other. That's one difference with the Google Sheet. So the enforcing to have it one after the other. And secondly, you cannot delete. You cannot update anything. So once you write it, once you do enter,
That's
it's
right.
there. It's there forever.
Forever. Permanent.
So you cannot. Yeah, it's a permanent record. You cannot update it, and you can for sure not delete it.
Correct.
So the only difference between a blockchain and that shared Google Sheet is you are enforced, or your input is enforced sequentially after the last line. So it's a sequence. Secondly, you cannot update. Thirdly, you cannot delete.
Correct.
And there you have it. So we can all now share that kind of sheet and then use this immutable ledger in between us, but knowing when you write something in it, it's undisputable. You wrote it, it's there, and it's there forever.
That's
So
right.
that's actually the difference between that sheet, and that's how I explain it, and how that actually works. You know, how it is enforced, and how that different consensus mechanisms and how the mathematic works behind it. It doesn't matter. We can talk about these things more in depth if you are in a group of people who are developing protocols or consensus mechanisms and so on. But I mean that's not what the mainstream need to know about this.
That's
They
right.
just need to know that there is something. Once you write in it,
It's
that's
permanent.
the limitation. It's permanent. It becomes permanent records. And another thing, what people need to know is that mathematics never lie.
Correct.
Really. So something is equal or it's not. And that's something which is undisputable. If you make a sum and you make another sum, this outcome of these two sums, it is equal or it is not.
Correct.
If it is almost equal, it means it's not equal, you know? So it's undisputable. Mathematics never lie. It's equal or it's not.
Correct.
And that's the principle of that unbreakable mechanism to validate stuff, you know, based on, we all know how that works, or I think most of the people in this call know how it works with the encryption, with the keys and so on. The outcome is equal or it's not. The data is integer or it's not. It's not almost integer. That means it's not integer. So, so yeah. And based on that, you can actually, I also compare it with, if you have to summarize it in a few words, I would name it a trust machine, in a way that, you know, this record is stored, a permanent record is stored. Or often also I compare it with an electronic notary, which is available 24/7. It's basically the same thing. Like if you would go to a notary, well, it's even better than the notary, because we are not sure what the notary send it through, but we just trust the notary today in legacy, let's say. In this technological stack, I compare the blockchain with an e-notary available 24/7, which actually opens the floor to a whole lot of enrichment of existing systems, processes, and so on. So yeah, that's about the basics. If nobody has a question at this point, I think you're all quite silent. But
Yeah, well, go ahead.
yeah. So about the current versions of the technology, we speak about 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Today we are in the 2.0 era. We are actually already in 3.0, but that's not mainstream for now. So just 1.0, it's about transactions, and everyone know it. It's a big hype again now. It's the famous Bitcoin raised in 2008. It's the first time actually when this technology became visible. It's not the birth of the technology, because there is nothing new in this. It's a combination of different elements which already existed long time before. I've seen things. Well, what doesn't matter. So in 2008, that great Bitcoin white paper saw the light. It was an implementation about electronic cash, and that's actually what it became. It became quite of a cash story. That's also why I start to dislike it, because it was the counter on the time of the economic crisis of 2008, an alternative for the legacy, which was totally going wrong. But so it's about transactions from A to B. That protocol, that consensus mechanism who secure the Bitcoin ledger, it's a very energy consuming protocol. So, but anyway, so it's also, I think, one of the most attacked ledgers or technologies, and it never break. It suffered some delays in some points. It suffered a whole lot of egos in that space, but it still stands. And believe me, it has been under attack by the most powerful institutes of the world, and it's still standing. So it's a totally decentralized, yeah, transaction system, and it's called a Bitcoin. Everyone know it, I think, now by now. But anyway, I think since there's so much money involved, it became, it's actually it got the, well, I would claim like the cancer of all society, like the financial greediness slept also into this cryptocurrency trading and so on. And that's why I even currently I always speak about distributed ledger technologies now, because when I mention blockchain, it has this tone, because people always think it's about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which is totally not the most powerful implementation, but it is the most known. And then I don't want to be linked to that greedy financial space. I'm very much in favor to talk about the distributed ledger and about a whole lot of other implementation which have maybe some financial component, but that's not the biggest strength of this. We'll talk about that later. So far, 1.0 transactions. 2.0, and that's mainly the work of Ethereum. 2.0, on top of these transactions, added logic. And logic in a way that some rules can be set. And all this logic, which are set in these, what we call smart contracts, it's actually, all these rules could also be set in legacy technology. If then else stuff, programming, quite simple. People speak about smart contracts, but they're actually quite dumb contracts. They're quite simple, you know, not so complex, because the more complex also the more risky, because the difference between the way we could do this in legacy technology and that way we do it in blockchain 2.0 stack, it's actually that, consider it that it's also published in an immutable way. Call it a cloud. It's the most comparable thing. So once it's published there, it's there forever. Once you publish a smart contract into the Ethereum ledger, it will be there forever. Nobody can remove it. Nobody can update it. It's the strength, it's the power of it, but it's also the weakness, because if someone has the address of your smart contract, everyone can audit this. So if you build a logic and you forget some backdoor or whatever, I mean, you have all the hackers in the world who can actually audit your smart contract and try, you know, try to work around and try to steal maybe some value or stop you or whatever. So it is a strength, but also a weakness. So that's why it's one of the most powerful, and it's also the driver of the business models, which I will explain later, these smart contract mechanisms. But so again, 1.0 transactions, 2.0 adding smart contract and logic in the same way, also decentralized, immutable logic available in a cloud, so nobody can interfere with it. Everyone has access to it. So 2.0. And then 3.0, so 2.0 is 1.0 Bitcoin, 2.0 Ethereum, and some wannabe Ethereums. And then 3.0, and that's when it becomes very, very interesting. it adds on top of 1 and 2.0 functionality, it adds scalability. I mean, scalability at a massive scale, and you should all look at it because that's what's going to happen in the next years from now. It's I always refer to Cardano because it was based on, well, it came out of the Ethereum space, and I think this is currently the strongest DLT technology, and they stick to the roadmap and so on. So it adds scalability to everything what I explained before. Same security on the transactions, but totally not the same energy consumption. Same logic like smart contracts and so on, functionality. It's much more maintainable. It's scalable. It has a huge throughput. It's 3.0. We are very much into that now in research, but not in deployment. So that's for the state of the union, let's say. Currently, we are in the 2.0, and mainly, I think 80% of everything, every transaction in the blockchain today, or every blockchain transaction, let's say, and definitely in the industry, it used 2.0 stack. So most of them Ethereum, or you have also, of course, Hyperledger, Corda, these things, but most of the market is actually Ethereum transactions. So far about what is blockchain, the comparison with the Google Sheet, some basic principles, and then 1, 2, and 3.0. That's it for the first session. We said with Praveen we're gonna make a break to let people digest and ask questions. Anyone has a question so far, please shoot in the chat. And otherwise we're gonna...
Actually, we have one of the very intelligent person in this part of the world. He's a techie, a good friend of mine. Gokul is also joined in. Welcome, Gokul, and it's good to have you. And the question I was wanting to ask you is about the Cardano, and I'm very impressed about the Cardano's milestones, and I agree that they are going in the right roadmap, and they also have a very good governance structure, which does not it's not seen in the Ethereum governance structure. It is still dependent on Vitalik, and so just was wanting to know a small view of when is Cardano kind of technologies coming to be implemented, say 2021 or?
It is available. I mean, if you check, you just Google Cardano, you follow the space over there. It is available. We already use parts of Cardano for anchoring mechanisms and so on. So, I mean, it is available and the milestones are kept. Again, these are, you have another reason why I really trust the roadmap is, first of all, they stick to the milestones. They're the development, also like you mentioned, the governance structure. So actually, Cardano learned from everything what was difficult or impossible or very slow in the Ethereum stack. About decentralization, it also brought some issues. You know, some stuff are nearly impossible to update unless everyone agree, but there is no governance. So in Ethereum is very, very difficult, but they kind of solved it, and they are slowly progressing, slowly but surely progressing, and it's again developed in the Japanese area, well, globally actually, but the core developers is a Japanese group. So, I mean, I told you my initial steps into IT was with Japanese. I really know these Japanese people are working respect and they stick to the plan, and in many ways it's a factor of success that this comes out of Japan, well, and US and so on, but definitely with the core team there. So yeah, it is available, and I would suggest to follow them and just pick up whenever they release. When they release, it's a stable release. It's yeah, it's all very promising. but now I look more like a Cardano sales guy. So I want to remain an objective
Uh,
reporter, but I'm very,
I'm also impressed, and I was wanting to look at a Cardano India chapter actually because of their impressive way of working and proof of stake as a ultimate thing, and the scalability and their distributed nature of the governance.
yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So good, 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 good. So
absolutely. So
keep
let's take a
going.
break.
Yeah.
How long you want to take a break, Praveen?
Um, you can take a break of about how do you want to take a break or you want to continue?
I always want to continue. It's just to
Yeah,
be,
go ahead. Go ahead, continue.
good, good, good. Okay, good.
Yep.
So let's go on.
Yep.
Let's go on.
Yep.
Because that bring me, I explain principles, I explain the versioning and so on. And now I want to touch upon three key elements which we use in implementations, in realistic implementations. So in many of the stuff, yeah. So three main things, key elements in the blockchain implementation. It's the first thing. So again, all of these things are possible in legacy technology also, but with the difference that that is done as in a centralized way. So it means that if you do all these things in non-DLT stack, in legacy current available technology, you don't have that certitude. You don't have the element of trust into these. So let's keep that apart. So we're talking about DLT implementations here, decentralized trust, and then one of the key elements is tokenization. Tokenization meaning digital representation of a thing, and a thing can be any kind of asset. It can be a right or a process or whatever, a thing represented on a ledger as a in form of a token, as a 1.0 something, or 1 unit of something, proven with mathematics and so on. So I'm not going to talk about the protocol, how that works, but tokenization, I think it's clear. Engineers in this call will definitely understand what that means. So that thing in the tokenization on the ledger, it's a basic key element for any kind of implementation, because you can then you can consider it as an address. You can use it to link several metadata to it and enrich it, and it become like an identity and so on. So the tokenization is a very crucial key element. Secondly, micropayments. And then I go back, actually, it build upon the tokenization. So if you have that token, for example, and that token would represent a digital dollar, so you have $1 with a certain partnership with the bank, let's say, you store it, you block it on an account, you create a token to represent it. So that token at that point represent 1.0 dollar. And now the beauty of this is that in this ledger, for example, where you have set to 18 digits, so it means you can make a value of that specific dollar. You can split it into pieces, playing with the comma. So you can actually replace the comma in so many positions that it become like 0,0000001 dollar. So it's such a ridiculous tiny amount because of the digits. I mean, in legacy banking, it's not even possible to work with so many digits. These systems just simply don't support more than 2, I think, or maximum 4. So where it become the real enabler of this is that you can actually have that little tiny amount, and you can settle it for free in certain setups. If you have a permissioned ledger in your organization, or between different stakeholders with the common interest in the ledger and the protocols and so on, you can actually have these tiny values at the point 0,0001 dollar, which is a ridiculous tiny amount in legacy system, impossible to transfer. First of all, technically they cannot store it. Secondly, the transfer in legacy cost more than the value of the transaction. So here in the distributed ledger, in the blockchain, you can have that teeny amount and you can actually settle it for free. So there is no added transaction fee to it in certain setups, not all. But in these setups where you don't have the transaction fees, basically you can work with these micropayments. And that, specifically that, ladies and gentlemen, it's an enabler for a whole lot of business models, because we implement these kind of things. For example, we can do it on a light switch. You can actually have switching as a service. People don't pay for the switch, they pay for the service. You could do it because you can have a switch on off, and you could actually financially settle that on a distributed ledger infrastructure. You don't need to go to the legacy bank, because that's impossible to deliver in legacy banking. So tokenization, an enabler to have the asset, can be a digital dollar, but can be any kind of identifiable thing. And then if you would do it on a dollar, playing with the digits, you can actually have micro payments, because in these permissioned ledgers, you don't have transaction fees. And then where it becomes even more interesting to build upon the first two elements is the smart contracts. You can actually build logic, because that little teeny micro payment behind the light switch, for example, you could even put an additional layer on top of it with a revenue split, for example. That little teeny amount, if the switch go, you could actually split it between different stakeholders in that switch service. So there you have a business model. You have a business model, an incentivization for people to contribute in that switching service, for example. And that kind of thing, it's actually a driver for the business model. So you need, first of all, digital representation on the ledger. You can implement these micro payments in a permissioned ledger infrastructure. And then on top of these teeny micro payments in IoT, this is very relevant. You can actually put an additional layer of logic. And that logic, for example, in case of co-creation, revenue split mechanism, automatic, without intermediaries, it's just the infrastructure. Give this revenue split, reward the people like the contract defined. So everyone is also able to look into it, to audit it, to trust it. So that, ladies and gentlemen, are the three key elements of realistic blockchain implementations today in the IoT. But I mean, it opened the door for so much creativity, and we have it today. So we don't need to wait for 3.0. We only wait for 3.0 for massive throughput volumes and so on. But actually, even in 2.0 permissioned ledger, we already have massive throughputs, and we have workarounds if we need more. So this is actually a reality check of what we implement already today, what is available today. The only thing is that we're still lacking a lot of evangelization or people to understand about it. So I think sessions like today, it's important for engineers to know these elements, to have the reality check, to recognize these key elements, to properly understand them, maybe even to build them and to make it work. So anyone, I hope, with questions about these three key elements, please shoot.
Yeah, again, I'm sorry. I'm
Always
asking.
Pravina.
I'm asking
You're welcome.
because it's really triggering a lot of ideas, and now, so I'm trying to elaborate that part. Is like, suppose I invest as a businessman, I invest on say some type of switches or some type of infrastructure. So for every trigger of usage, micropayment can be transferred to my account. That's what you're telling.
Yes.
So instead of I go and buy, or a customer of mine go and buy, say the government wants to buy 10,000 street lamps. Instead, I say, don't worry, I'm going to put all the 10,000 street lamps, and then every second or every minute, I'm going to take a micro payment. You can run it for 10 minutes, you can run it for 20 minutes, you may run it for 24
Yeah.
hours.
You would not
So,
actually you would not sell the lamp, but
but
you would
usage.
sell lightning as a service.
Yes, that
And
means,
you will say you will pay per use. And
yeah,
the way you see your money coming in is like a progress bar. You know, when they use it, the money will come in, and you will split that money between the supplier, yourself, and the installer. And there you have a decentralized business model where people can trust it. You are not the receiver of the money, because when the moment the progress bar comes in, the money comes in, it's automatically split between the stakeholders. It's a ledger of trust. It's a logic of trust. It's auditable. Before people actually trust it, and I will touch upon that later, of course, it needs to be audited. Tom the Block, he can say whatever he wants. But when you implement this on a real business, you need an auditor to validate the code, to see that this smart contract worked like this and it's unbreakable. It's more of a software testing thing. But once, let's say, if we agree that the smart contract is certified and it's validated, once it's operational, everyone can be in peace, and everyone know, as long as the lamps will burn, the money will flow and it will be automatically distributed. We don't have to touch Praveen. We don't have to trust Praveen to give us the money when he receives it, because we will receive it when he will receive it in the same time. Thanks to so it's a different approach to anything as a service. So that's decentralized trust, decentralized logic, decentralized business models, immediate outpayment, like instant settlement. Like when I explained it on the energy trades and so on, it's before they had to wait like 30 or 60 days to have a financial settlement.
correct.
Now it happened
Instant.
on instant, or it could happen instant. But of course, in that implementation, they put some green buttons, because before going to the transfer, they want to, still release it. But you could do it instant. Yep.
So I have a question from one person called Abel again.
Good.
And what about digital identity? Do you think this will be implemented in blockchain or not?
Yes, it's definitely in Europe. We have a program, a big European program. It's called the Self-Sovereign Identity. If you Google it, you will find it. It's based on the European blockchain infrastructure, blockchain and services infrastructure, so the EPSI. It's the big European implementation, and identity is one of the main use cases there. The purpose there is to give ownership of identity to the person. So if you give consent, certain access to your personal information, you can actually manage this consent. You manage your identity and your personal data sets in a wallet, let's say, and you give access to pieces, and all this is based on a blockchain use case based on the European blockchain and services infrastructure. So the answer is a big yes. Because in identity and access to personal data, we definitely need a ledger of trust. And even if in Europe we trust government, but I think there are a lot of other areas in the world where you cannot trust the government. And so there's definitely a big global use case on identity. And with this enabling technology, definitely it brings some solutions to the table to give people, again, ownership of their own identity. It's definitely one of the main use cases. So I invite you to find an answer to your question through Google. You can find self-sovereign identity, European self-sovereign identity. You will find it there, EPSI infrastructure. So yeah, thank you for your question. I'm very happy to receive a question there. I'm also happy with your questions, Praveen.
Yeah. I'm just trying to see the YouTube now, and let me see the YouTube. No questions there. No questions. Go ahead.
On YouTube, you see my son Samuel.
Yeah, I saw that. Samuel is there.
He give me some sign. He say You're doing fine, Daddy. You're doing fine.
And there are, apart from Samuel, 5 people. I think it's me also there.
Hmm.
So
Good, good.
good.
Okay, anyway, it will be
Go ahead.
recorded. We can afterwards distribute it also.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's go further.
Yeah.
So for more practical examples on what I just said, so I explain here in the first slide, tokenization, micropayments, and smart contracts, but that's, let's say, technical approach. To touch upon a bit more like at the functional side, how this actually translate to functionality, what kind of functionality these kind of things bring to the table. So the most used and the most powerful thing, I mean, it's the most simple, but also powerful functionality is this, what I mentioned before, what I referred before, like the notary. Imagine any kind of process, industrial process, where at any moment in time, at no cost, you can actually request a notary to come over and to stamp it. So these days in legacy, if we need to go to the notary to, let's say, to seal a contract, or if we have to go to an insurance to seal a claim or something, you know, then, and you need a lawyer to make the document, and you need to pay the notary to send it to the registration and so on. Imagine you can do this at no or nearly no cost compared to what it cost in legacy. I mean, if we need to do this to go to a notary office in Belgium, it would cost us, I don't know, 100, 150 euro maybe. And then if 10 years later you need to ask again an evidence of your claim at that moment, you probably would need to buy some seal to the notary. Again, you have to pay to have that evidence of your first deposit. So it's quite costly, and I compare this to what we have today. We have a ledger of trusts which can operate as a notary, and that's the most used and most commonly used and also powerful implementation, and very simple also to implement, very cheap also to do it. So it brings actually trust and integrity to processes. So just to give an example on something I already a solution I already made. It actually was in the medical data. So when there were several hospitals contributing to a research on new medicine, and they have like blood samples of people reacting to the tested medication. So they have in different countries, 3 different countries, they had different results, and it was actually one of the Belgium side. They were totally not consistent with the 2 other countries. So something went wrong along the line. And they could not just replay all these. Something went wrong with the data somewhere along the line with some process which was buggy, or I don't know, and nobody could actually go back to the initial record to replay the process because it was unclear until where it was original and not. So by just adding that notary stamp, it could actually prove that when this sample result came out of the robot, it was stamped. And afterwards, each time when a process was used, the process itself, which is also a script, it was also each time stamped. The process could only start if this certified process was used. And so each time along, if it was a data set, or it was an algorithm, or it was a program, I mean, you can put a notary stamp on a virtual machine, like you can do it on a little algorithm. You can do it on any kind of digital file. So along the line of that, the evolution from the original data set coming from the robot and being aggregated with other data sets and then being treated and loaded and reloaded and so on. Along the line, we implement a lot of stamps, and actually each stamp gave an evidence of the integrity of that point in the process of that data set. It was original and so on. So that's a type of implementation. It's very powerful because it's also very easy. The process don't have to change. It operates as a background process. So all the operators in the process, they didn't even know that there was a new system connected. there was also a new role, an auditor, who actually has a monitoring screen where all these integrity evidences were kept or they were made available. So it actually facilitates afterwards for an auditor to certify the process, to certify the campaign, and all these kind of things. Now I already explained a quite complex chain of logic there, or a medical campaign, but you can have it on easy small things. If you submit a contract to that notary, you have a certification. I will show it on my next slide. I show the kernel implementation of that specific thing.
So, Tom, I have one simple question on the same thing.
Good.
How about COVID vaccination certification on the, say, for example, you said no sovereign identity. Suppose there's a SSI identity and I get a injection vaccination. Is that possible on blockchain as a notary service?
That could be a metadata attached to your identity. Yes, and you could show it. You could actually show that you are a safe person without releasing your identity, for example, in some cases.
Oh, okay, okay.
So if that become a metadata and you can prove you are negative, you don't have to release your identity. Doesn't matter as long as you can show that you are negative.
Wow,
And in other cases, you will just show another part of your identity. So actually, an identity is actually a set of metadata around one specific item, which is you. But yeah, that's, yeah, the answer is yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I mentioned the notary, the stamp. Some examples about tokenization. It go from, well, there are so many, there have been a lot of implementations already on tokenization. I mentioned the case of banking, where we actually digitize a euro or a dollar, and we did it in the Middle East in their local currencies also. Same for energy. It was the subject of our last year presentation, how we actually tokenize energy, to have green electricity certificates. Now it's about H2, green H2 certificates. So a lot of evolution also in the energy space, and a lot of tokenization also there to be able to trade, to be able to take ownership, to reserve, to split, all these things. It's also based on the tokenization. There's even a beautiful case which saw the light last year, in which I'm deeply involved. It's called Algae Project, and it's about carbon trades. Again, also tokenization of carbon credits, which is basically the evolution or the reduction of carbon, which become like a credit for a company. It become very important in Europe. So we also tokenize carbon. You can tokenize everything actually. And at my passionate side, I mentioned I'm in beer, sommelier and artisan beers. So there's a very nice ideologic project I did and still do. It's about the tokenization of cherry trees. It's actually in Brussels, when the Brussels city grew. Before, around Brussels, there were these specific cherry trees. It's called Schaarbeekse Creek. And they actually disappeared by the growth of the city. And they are very special because in the middle of the cherry there is an almond flavor, or the oil of the pit of the cherry compared to other cherries. It's unique because it has that little almond flavor. So we actually have a project to plant these old trees, to restore the trees around Brussels, because we need them to make great artisan cherry beer, sour cherry beer, which is famous to our area. So we need the trees, and we actually sold owner certificates of the trees. So people who want to support these, most of them are fanatics in the beer, Belgian beer. They are actually buying a tree, a token representing a tree, And from the moment actually, so they can keep it in an electronic wallet. It costs 60 euro. And they actually, when the tree is planted, because we have mother trees, we take the babies from there. And then once the tree, the baby tree is planted, it's actually, it has a GPS coordinate. And this is sent as an update to the token. And so the person in the wallet receive an update. Suddenly he has the status of the token. It's okay, the tree is planted on this location. So suddenly the asset, the digital asset, which he bought in a crowdfunding campaign, he is actually attached now to a real asset, which is a baby tree planted. And we could actually send more updates. We could send a picture or so on. Now, what he has when he have this token in his wallet, he can prove he's the owner. He was a co-investor of that bigger project, and because of that, we, the Belgian brewers, are also grateful for that people to invest in our cherry tree project. So actually, they get privileges when they go to the brewery once a year. He can buy a specific bottle. So thanks to the token, he showed the token. It's a unique token. Nobody can copy it. Once the credit of the token is used, that year, nobody else can reuse it. So there's a lot of possibility with the tokenization. So it's a big move in financials, because we can transfer whatever we want. But at the more human and the more boots in the ground implementation, I prefer the implementation on the cherry trees, because afterwards we could actually transfer live. We could transfer a tree actually in form of a token. The ownership of the tree can be transferred from one to another. You can have a lot of privileges if you are owner of this digital asset. So yeah, that's about tokenization. A lot of implementation there. And then another, so the more complex side is about your an example of a smart contract implementation. I will have more examples later, more industrial examples. But at the human side, for example, if you would be owner of digital assets, let it be money or let it be cherry trees in your wallet, you could actually build some logic around it with smart contract to define your last will. If something happened to you, what's going to happen to your digital assets? Maybe you will implement some logic. You probably give it to your kids, but maybe in certain conditions only when they're 18 years old, or with some conditions if they finish school. And then the smart contract become more complex the more rules you put in it. But everything is actually possible. But the more rules you put in it, the more expensive it become to, and the more dangerous it become also to possibly forget some stuff. But anyway, it is a possibility. It is a human example of what could be a smart contract. If something happened to you in your last will, you could actually implement with certain variables to execute your last will without the interference of a middleman. You would just use that cloud infrastructure to execute whatever you store as digital assets. Anyone with a question, again, please shoot. Because we have this simple thing, the notary, a bit more complex, the tokenization, then the smart contract. But then when it comes to implementation of all ecosystems, think about everything of the three things before: tokenization, the notary, tokenization, the smart contracts. You could actually build whole ecosystems logic. Like Praveen mentioned, we have that data brokerage, which I will touch upon later. You can actually build with a chain of logic, but you really need a long time to mature it, knowing that once it's published, it's there forever. So it's a very big challenge, but I love to take this challenge in many ways. It's about to automate ecosystems. It's to define compliance of contributors to an ecosystem. You cannot join that platform unless if you comply to certain rules, upfront compliance to the ecosystem. And then once people pass that gate of compliance, so you have a certain set of contributors with certain values. Once you are in this ecosystem, you pass through the gate, you can have these incentivization rules, business models, all kind of rules, voting, type of democratic systems, liquid democracy. It's also possible in DLT. Identity, we had the question of identity. It's definitely part of ecosystem when people are involved. But yeah, that's a very big challenge. And as I said, because of the immutable factor, as long as we are not in 3.0, it become very, very difficult to define it, but we already did, and we still do. So yeah, these are the four type of, let's say, functional groups of realistic implementations. I will go to an example, a very nice example, which will make it visible. Please, any question, shoot. Praveen is silent now, but I'm trustful. You have a lot of questions. Because first use case, yes, Praveen, yes.
So in the DAO scenario, I just was wanting to understand, in the third world countries, the police complaints are not taken seriously and they don't register complaints and kind of things. Can we figure out a way to build a DAO, that is a digital autonomous organization kind of things, where people have an identity, they have a problem, they have some evidence and some kind of things. They can simply upload and file a complaint, which is normally by human beings. And you must have heard about many stories in third world countries, Africa, and even Asian countries like Vietnam and other places, where the police becomes the broker and he decides not to register a complaint, and he continues to block um, a wrong event happening. So will now be a very good.
Yes, well, you definitely have a point there, but I think there's also a lot of limitation to the case you just described, because if you are in a, well, always the problem in these things is governance.
Yeah.
If you have to think about possible abuse. If you mention a claim and the claim is made somehow public, you also have to be robust for for false claims.
Yeah, that's it.
For example, and we have built and still progressing actually several governance mechanisms. But governance is one of the biggest challenges, knowing that some points are immutable and decentralized. So if someone take abuse of a system, for example, the case of data quality, I will touch upon it later. If you are in a decentralized data space and everyone publish data sets, so there is this possibility to have a lack of quality, or maybe someone put fake data. But because we are not a middleman, so we have no means to interfere with that. So we need the community to react to that. So people actually claim that some publication is possibly false. So you could actually, but then also you have the complexity. You have to try. No, you have to make sure that you also de-incentivize fake claims.
Correct.
Because if you're the concurrence of your neighbor and you want his data set to go, well, the easy way, if someone raise a claim, you believe it and you take it offline. But what would the fake claim? It would be a war of claims, fake claims to take your concurrent out of position. So we actually we have solutions to that, but it's never 100% closed, because we can de-incentivize by if you make a claim, you need to put some money beside your claim. So if you have a fake claim, you can lose that money, so you have to think about how to de-incentivize maybe a fake claim. In some point, you need an expert to validate. In some point, there is a centralized interference.
Yeah, some type of notary or some validation
Yes,
of the claim
it
needs to be
is.
done.
It is actually unrealistic to think that we can decentralize everything. But we can decentralize certain key elements, like I mentioned, the business model uh, or the revenue split. So these kind of things, they are elements who have to be decentralized because these are the engines of the collaboration. For example, this is not possible to be hosted by one of the partners in the consortium. It has to be hosted by everyone, and it
Correct.
has to be monitored by everyone, not by one. So these things are crucial for a collaboration and so on. But other things, I mean, we cannot nearly not. But I would claim that today we cannot decentralize everything.
Correct.
Also because the world evolve, people evolve, rules evolve. So we have to have some variables. But if someone tell you that they have like an updatable mechanism for blockchain, that's totally beside the
True.
question. So yeah, we have some limitations. Some strengths are also in the same way limitations, or I wouldn't say blocking limitations, but let's say big challenges to overcome. So in any kind of a design, we always have to consider the benefit of decentralization and then the possible complexity of immutable, logic and so on. But yeah, I will touch upon that.
Thank you. Thank
Um, I'm gonna now show one of our prouds, and I know, uh, well, people involved in this, they're also watching. So I'm very proud to contribute to this because beside knowing all these solutions, let's say, I also love to build them and to see them work. So I want to share the Carrion Food project. Is not new. It's not a new use case. It's about food supply, transparency in food supply. There are maybe in the world 200 startups touching upon this use case. And if we look ahead in the future, it will just be logic that all the food in the retail will be transparent, traced, and the consumer has the right to see the origin of the food and so on. It's not the case now. So we have a lot of rise of these kind of companies like Carrion Food in France. The difference of Carrion Food compared to other suppliers in the space, global suppliers, it's it's the way this is connected to the bigger story. We also touch upon that. So the fully decentralized. There are some components in Carrion Food which are totally are very innovative and currently under the surface because some of these things. I mean, these are services for farmers. Farmers are not in our technological stack, so they understand up until a certain level. But farmers need to be farmers. They don't need to be data traders or so. There are other people in the chain who are actually enriching data and so on, and then rewarding the farmers. So there is a lot of evolution in this, but every time, depending on the stakeholder, we speak a different language. To the farmer, we speak farmer language, and to different stakeholders in the chain, we have a different, let's say, vocabulary. But actually, the use case, it's actually to, and the enabling technologies, what they actually do here, blockchain and the other technology, because this is a case where you have IoT, sensors, algorithms, data. You have that notary service. I will show how that looks in Carrion. So the certificate of the notary, I will show it in a minute. And then you have the smart contracts actually to incentivize the data sharing and to have some upfront compliance and so on and so on. So it's also a constant evolution. So I love to contribute in this. There are a lot of links with global players, links with the American market. We have there is a partner. It's called GoChain in the US, which was very big into this space also, but in the American continent. And now actually the challenge of all these things, and I will touch upon that later, is actually to let them work together, because nobody, not Carrion, not GoChain, also definitely not IBM or anyone else in this space, in this specific use case, nobody will take the global space. The reality will be a reality when we have different solutions. Even in one shop, in one retail, you have maybe, I don't know, 3,000 products in a retail. Of course, they come from different supply chains. So each supply chain has its own technology and so on. But the challenge here is actually to make them work together. And that's the differentiator between Carrion and others, is that the mechanisms in the background of it, and I will show the architecture to the group here today and to everyone who's watching this later on. The difference on Carrion is that it is future-proof and ready to connect with all the other suppliers if they also comply to that architecture, and they will, because it's the European single market model. So we have already these integration cases with Argentinian beef coming over the Atlantic Ocean to France and then being consumed in Belgium and so on. So it's a integration at data level. So the data component in Carrion is very important. Now I will show how this looks towards the farmer, let's say. I hope, wait, I think I have to cut here and how to, okay, it's a bit delayed there. Wait, how to, Praveen?
A QR code.
Do you see my web now?
Yeah, QR code I can see. Yep.
Okay, but because actually this share thing is in the way of my tab. Okay, I will open it in another tab. Carryonfood.com.
Yeah, I can see Carrion.
Good. So I'm sorry for the delay. Just it's not so handy with all these things in play. I suppose you guys don't speak French.
No.
So
English.
I will put it in English. Yes.
It's gone German, I think.
So when we mention about a blockchain platform, it's
Tom, it's not in English.
It's not in English?
Yeah, it is in German, I think.
In what?
German.
Oh, that's not German. That's Dutch.
Oh,
that's my language. Now it's in English, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Good. Okay. So now this is how it looks. I don't know what this is. Someone has a phone close to the PC, or it was me. Anyone, please mute there. Okay, good. Thank you. So this is how, let's call it, a blockchain platform looks to the users. We nearly don't mention it, but this is how it's actually translated in this specific French case towards the users who are actually, it provides a tool to give its innovation about sustainable food, to allow producers to make declarations about how they work, but to make sure that nobody interfere with the declarations. There is this notary in the background who actually stamp all these declarations. So it actually facilitates, so what is asked, the producers to give guarantees about what they do, also to upload evidences. If they say I have a bio label, it means they receive control, it means they have an attestation for it. So instead of just saying I'm a bio farm, the Carrion platform asks them, okay, give us the evidence, expose your evidence. So by exposing the evidence, then comes the DLT, the blockchain notary guy, stamping it. And I mean, the Carrion stuff is not interfering with it. The cloud blockchain infrastructure provide this stamp. Now, this is how they actually do it. So then afterwards, it translates into a website for that farmer, who then show all the declarations with evidence. And they can also do it at the product level. So in to show the different steps in between different steps in the production process. Now, I hope this is not disturbing for you guys. I just realized the product. But so how this translate actually to product is actually the product history. It's born in this farm. It was depending on, there's a lot of IoT also. So some of these evidences are not declarative by the farmer, but they are attached to IoT. For example, on the truck, when the identity is scanned, it go into transport. There is a signal sent to just a legacy database, but in the background of that, a notary blockchain stamp that key point in the product history. So afterwards, you have a lot of steps in one point in the life of that specific animal. It's a pity for the animal, but it's slaughtered and then it's cut and it's packaged. So these are the different steps in that product. And now how that actually translates to the global story. So you can have evidences on intermediate steps, but then actually the way this is enabling audits for an auditor, because actually Carrion itself is not an authority. They don't have the right to say that something is true or false. They are not an authority, but they are technological infrastructure provider, meaning they give access to the technology. So if later on there would be a dispute on this specific,
Tom,
yeah,
they want this screen little zoomed actually. This display screen to be zoomed.
wait, I'm going to download the document. I'm going to put the document on screen. So the point is that when this, so what I wanted to explain is that, so this is actually secured. It was submitted on the 1st of December on the blockchain. But again, what I want to explain that the Carrion company, let's say in France, they don't have authority. They are just giving access to the technology, let's say, opening the door to the notary. And if later on there is a problem in the retail with this specific product, the auditor who has to treat the complaint, he can go to Carrion, take the certificate, and there is it actually enabled the audit of the declaration. So there is a mathematic evidence that this person make all these declaration, and there is a mathematic evidence also that this thing happened in the notary. So at this point in time, the declaration was made by the person with this specific identity. So the supplier, he cannot dispute that he didn't say it, because in the declaration there is, in this file name, which is totally unusable for any of us, because you don't know what this means. You don't know even what is in the file. So there is also no release of the data. So the person in one point, if an auditor has to validate a complaint, for example, he will request this specific file, which is the PDF, which contains the declaration. And in the declaration, there is a reference to evidences which have been given about the bio label, about the transporter who transport the animal, about different steps in the production process. So all these evidences are available in a legacy system. So the auditor needs the original documents. He can make a validation thanks to the notary stamps during the process. He can make a validation that the documents he has are integer, original, and this whole certificate is actually a certificate of the chain of evidences. So it's actually stamping the individual evidences. And this last one, it's grouping all the evidences together, the keys, the fingerprints of the evidences, let's say, in one file. And then this file is actually, let's say, the root of the audit facility. So I hope this is somehow interesting. I know that this is going to a pilot case. But anyway, so this is how it actually looks towards the, well, the first part, is about Wait, I do a share. I'm doing new share. What is? I don't know if I explained it clear.
It's fantastic. That's fantastic. See, actually, that's a real classic study which we learnt in various articles that Walmart sent beef to China. That's all. But we didn't know that it is so intricate and lots of information of authentication and validation is in between.
Yeah, it actually it's an enabler for audit. It enable audits. That's how it actually. That's what it does. It's not an authority.
So again, a question from
Yes.
Abel. For this certificate, we need the original PDF in case of auditing, right? That's what you said.
Yes, yes, yes. So actually, the certificate only show that without the original documents, the certificate is worthless.
Correct.
So it is only the thing, like if you would send a set of original documents, it's the same process. Like if you would do it in legacy, you would, the farmer per product, he would make a list of everything what is about the product and adding evidences beside it, making a package per product and sending it to the notary, and the notary make a stamp. You know, it's a very complex and it's an impossible thing to do per product. But because of this infrastructure, it becomes smooth in the background of the digital platform of the farm, and it's automatically done. So it brings trust to products. So you can actually trust, because now there is a big movement on. I cannot reach my. Sorry. There is a big movement on direct sale to, for example, straight sale from the farm. So now, especially in COVID period, I will touch upon that case specific. There is a big move towards the local buying. So people now, they go a lot more to the farm and buy straight from the farm. But there is also with the same phenomenon, there is also a doubt of trust, because people think that in the big retails, well, there are a lot of control points, and everything you buy there, it passes some systems, and you can maybe trust it more. While actually, when you go straight from the farm, are you sure that this is not, with hormone or antibiotics and stuff? But here, this kind of infrastructure actually enable the farmer to expose this kind of information about the goods. So it allow him to regain trust. So yeah, there are a lot of scandals, specifically in meat. So yeah, I invite you all to follow it. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. I want to go back to my presentation, but it's a bit complicated with this. Hold on. I'm sorry for the confusion here. I have to open a new tab. Yeah, I go back to my Gmail. What to do? Right here. Come on. There it is. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Where were we? Indeed, in the carrion food case.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Okay, so this is actually where I wanted to put a break. I think it's maybe time for a break now. Afterwards, we will touch upon much underlying complexity of the architecture and the data market and all these things. So it will be more.
But time is running out. I don't want to give a break. Any questions? Abel, if you have any questions, ask. Or anybody else who can ask questions, we can ask. But we have only another 10 minutes to go.
Serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. What to do? Because we have so many.
Yeah. Don't worry. We will have part 2 of this. Don't worry.
I lost the time actually.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It was a very detailed and very serious understanding of the subject, because you can't rush through such detailed subjects. And definitely, we could, depending on how you want to do your Christmas or a first week of January, we can reslot the second one. Don't worry.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course,
Yes.
of course. So about I will have to make choices here. So I'm gonna go a bit faster over certain things. I already mentioned the decentralized.
Don't rush. Don't rush. Do as you want to do. And
Okay.
the remaining part, we'll put it as part two, and then we'll do it again first week of January if you want.
Yes, yes, yes. Of course.
Yeah.
So the rise of the DAO, I already touched upon it.
Yeah.
It's the decentralized autonomous organization. So this is something I already explained before. Now, because I think a lot of people in the audience here are interested in the business model,
Yes.
and I think I already touched upon it slightly.
Yes.
Because the business model is on data sharing. It's about co-creation and revenue split. But depending on the use case, there isn't a thing like one business model. I mean, you have trust as a business model. In the case of the carry-on case, for example, they allow not intermediate, contributors to the supply chain to offer this kind of transparency as a service, because it definitely value the the product. So there is an incentive for people to have this. At the consumer side, people like to scan the QR code on the product, and they have more information, so it actually enrich the product. Now, on specific on this specific case, it's the business model is always on tiny amounts. I've been working in companies where these kind of systems are sold for many hundreds of thousands of euros. Yes,
Shweta Sai, yeah.
I don't know.
Told on.
Someone, wait, we mute. Okay, sorry. So when these kind of things are sold for many hundred thousands of euros, it's not accessible. It's only accessible for big corporations or for big corporations or governments or so. So there's definitely a space for that. But the big success of these kind of implementations is at a lower level. So it means the lower you go in the chain, the more cost effective you have to be, the cheaper you have to be. So definitely today, the technology stack evolve in such a way, and also the implementations get more mature. So these kind of things, I mean, it become accessible, like a part of that carrying infrastructure is actually offered for free. The farms, they don't pay for the initial onboarding. They just pay like €1 per product story. Suddenly it become accessible for everyone. I mean, it enriched the product at more than a euro, but it only costs €1. So they have additional value. They have this certitude. And how this is possible is just because there are no intermediaries. Once the infrastructure is actually installed, you can have a pay-per-use like we mentioned on the switch. I mean, in the switch, it's not even talking about the euro. It's about 1,000 or 100,000 piece of a euro. So the business models on data sharing, we have to step away from the fact that, okay, that business model have to be about 100,000 or tens of thousands of dollars and so on. The business model in this space, it's based on an aggregation of a lot of tiny amounts. Because when you talk about data sharing, there is nearly no data set worth thousands. But there are millions of data sets worth tiny amounts. And definitely people in this room and people who are checking in later, definitely you are connected, or you definitely own some data which is worth something in some kind of use case, which possibly you ignore at this point. So when people are looking for business models, you have to think about what I just described before about the micro payment thing, because that opens up another perspective of what a business model should be. or could be. Because if you integrate these little tiny amounts or tiny cases, let's say, switches, transfer of something, enable something, open something, and suddenly you can have a pay-per-use of that specific thing. You can build it on API access or whatever. It's abstracted from the complexity of what it actually is. The protocol and so on doesn't matter. So yeah, the business model is on the data sharing, or on the fact that in the earlier case, the business model is on providing trust to a certain story, or trust to a declaration, or make a product more safe for people, make people trust it, which makes people buy it, for example. So depending on who you are and what you do, if you are a data processor or you are a farmer or you whatever you do, you definitely have some IoT involved, you have some interactions involved, and the business models have to be considered or are to find within the data sharing mechanisms or in the trust mechanisms and so on. So you can actually sell trust as a service or anything as a service. So how did actually the architecture of our big program, let's say I call this the blueprint of the single market. It's an architecture which we actually which saw the light in, I think, 2016, 17. It has been challenged on a global scale. That's also how I met Praveen and other Indian people, but as well as Japanese, Americans, European, German, a lot of people. At the time, I worked on a data brokerage program, and we challenged this architecture. It got mature over time, and it actually helped to understand people's position. So I don't know the background of the people in this call today, but anyone here is definitely involved in any kind of data, because data is what actually is the common factor between all of us. We all have ownership or should have ownership of a certain personal data set, context around yourself, whatever you do. Or furthermore, if you see in industrial stakeholders, you have a different role in different vertical industries. You are part of the medical, the mobility, energy, whatever. You definitely have some data around you or in your business processes. So this architecture actually is the blueprint of most of the things, if not all of the things. Platforms, telecoms, everything has a position into any kind of a data flow. And some of these elements are actually the key factors, what I described earlier. I mentioned tokenization. I mentioned smart contracts. I mentioned the business model of co-creation and revenue split. Well, to understand where is that revenue split business model, for example, it has the number 10 in this architecture. So before we go to number 10, you have to go to all the numbers before, but I will try to summarize. Below, you have the data sets. You can have, it's mentioned data seller. I don't really like the conception here of seller and buyer, but it was the original way how we explain it in data brokerage, which is selling of data. Below, you have IoT sensors, but you can also have static data, historical data, databases, stuff you guys have, whatever you do. On top of that, you will have an aggregator. An aggregator is a role in the data space who actually help the identification of the data or bring some data together, whatever it is. So you have, that's why you have so many layers, because depending on the vertical industry, you will have an aggregator specialized in agri-food, energy, mobility. They understand the sector, so they're actually connecting to owners of data, to the databases, and they actually do a job which is called data annotation. Annotation means tag a category or a label to what it is. And actually, people in the data sharing mechanisms, they are very much concerned, yeah, but I expose my data and people are maybe going to steal it or whatsoever. It's a no-brainer. It's not an issue when you only expose the tag. So you just expose the tag, not the data itself. You basically hang a catalog at your front door saying, look, this is all the kind of categories which I have. Well, if you want to be found, I mean. And that's typically, so that catalog is what is that data lake. It's a different conception of what people understood of what is a data lake until years ago, or maybe still think that the data lake is a massive storage of all different data sets copied from different systems. So which is not sustainable, because I mean, it's also not safe to copy your data to a lake to expose it, because possibly anyone with access to the lake could properly take it. They will not buy it from you, they will just take it. So in the decentralized model, we expose only the categories and the metadata, the annotated metadata. But you cannot expect from farmers or from doctors or from whatever industrial, you know, source to be a data brokerage guy or to be a metadata guy. So you have, the market needs these kind of roles. And if you see how the market evolves in how actually that data brokerage and the data sharing mechanisms evolved, they actually become the market. There are a lot of new roles, new jobs, jobs which are not known before. We evolve towards a data-driven society, so we need to first of all make catalogs of what we have. And that's ongoing now, and actually even accelerating thanks to the COVID, because we need to know everything what is around us.
Right.
To start local, national, in a federated market in Europe, the whole European space. I mean, we need a view on what is available in the market, goods and services. I mean, the biggest problem today of any kind of business, the biggest challenge or the biggest risk of whatever you do would be not to be found. You can be whoever you want. You can have all the qualities in the world. If people cannot find you, you have no business. So the discovery of your goods and services is what is the difference between failure and success. Otherwise, you will go yourself and you will have one-on-one, probably a customer, but think about the power of being exposed with all your qualities and with all your catalog without the danger to get stolen from it. So you actually protect your assets, which is your data sets and so on, but you expose it and it can be discovered on a global scale, on a local scale, whatever. So to do so, you have these two roles above you. So you are below, you are, let's say, the seller. Above you, you have an aggregator who knows what you have, who is aware of how this annotation job works, and he actually adds tags to it. And above that, that aggregator exposes these tags in a catalog. Maybe he runs the lake or someone else runs the lake. Anyway, the aggregator gives your categorization, the annotation of what you have, and the lake is actually exposing a catalog. Now, if later on anyone comes to discover your data, he will make a query on the lake. He finds something of interest, and then there is a direct path. Actually, he can contact you. He will find the conditions. So before he knocks your door, he knows what he's interested at. He knows your conditions, because attached to it, you say, these are my conditions. This is my price per unit. This is how I want you to be. You know, you have to be upfront compliant. You need to have a certain certification to consume my data. You need to be maybe, I don't know, an Indian company or not. You know, you cannot be this and this, or you have to be this and that. Anyway, the rules attached to what you want to do in your condition, it is a smart contract definition of upfront compliance. Now, later on, if a transaction happens, and that's where is the business model. So please pay attention to this point. So later on, when a transaction happens, so the buyer actually agree on the condition. So he pay out €1 for whatever data set you have, or €100 for a report you have, or whatever. Now, actually, the magic of this number 10, and that's where is the business model for this lake and aggregator, is that revenue split. Remember the revenue split on the switch? Well, it's the same structured revenue split on this transaction of the data selling. When someone will discover in the lake your data set, It's thanks to the annotation of the aggregator, and thanks to the fact that someone hosts a lake and hosts your catalog. And because of these two contributors, which have both a specific function in the data space, they get rewarded for anything which sells on their market space. And that's where is the business model on data sharing. Now, I hope I didn't lose anyone. I possibly did.
It's super. I think this is a very interesting thing. And way back, we had explored the opportunity of sharing weather data points all over India, and then also data points of traffic signaling to calculate the pollution loads on every city on a date, time of the day, time of the week, and time of the year, kind of calculations for pollution control and kind of things. These are all very interesting data sets to understand as a saleable product worldwide.
There is, well, that's actually, I think everyone looks into that. And sorry to bring you to the reality check. That's, it's, that kind of sets is considered more like open data.
Okay.
So it's difficult or near impossible to monetize on that. But just maybe to give an example of what is a possible case, it's more also conceptual, but this is an incentive for data quality.
Okay.
Because in the industry, I would like to claim, and I hope I don't upset anyone, that open data as a project is actually quite failed, in our opinion, because open equal free equal lack of quality, or not maintained.
Yeah.
As a representative of the industry, I want to claim that we don't need free data. We don't need free open data. We need quality data.
Correct.
And we want to pay for it.
Yes.
And paying for it, as I mentioned before, we pay for it, but we can also pay for it on a micro payment level.
That's right.
But we don't want free data. We rather pay for it, but it rather be quality, because some of these things we have like first responder applications, we have critical applications based upon some signals. We want these signals to be sure. So we don't need open data, free data. We need quality data. And this whole thing, if you implement stakeholders between the source and your application, these stakeholders need an incentive to provide quality. And the incentive in many cases is money. So they need certitude to be paid, and they need certitude, to have the agreement. If they produce it, they will be paid. So you have this automation, which is enabled. You have the revenue split mechanisms. You have all these trust mechanisms who actually make these data quality as a business model, actually. Contributors to quality are paid.
Sorry, I want to talk about quality is that nowadays medical data of human being on various diagnostics is also becoming a very high quality data, which is owned by the privacy, and then the person can amortize that data to such data sets is a very good use case, I thought.
Yeah. Then again, the case of medical files, one file is not very interesting, but 500,000 files are interesting, and the aggregation of 500,000 files, it's worth it a lot of money for big hospitals and pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
But if you split the value of that 500,000 between all the patients, all the people,
yes,
and up to the original people, I mean, they are a person who receive as a person a micropayment. It's not enough to be humanly appreciated.
Yes.
So these micropayments only work for machines. Machines don't complain; they keep it, But machines with wallets earning money, so then you can actually make sustainability. I made this in air quality, for example, where you have a monthly subscription of a community. People in the community pay €1 a month subscription, and the €1 a month 80% go to the wallet of the sensor, and then 20% is distributed between the platform and the initiative group.
Oh,
So
it's a
this
business model.
way actually makes the air quality sensor sustainable, because if there is enough of interest, the interest is expressed in monthly subscriptions. So after 2 years, when the sensors have to be replaced, because the sensors have a lifespan of 2 years, otherwise they are polluted themselves. So if he have enough money in his wallet, he can actually pay for his own renewal.
Correct.
So you can actually make data sources sustainable if you have enough subscribers consuming from it. And these subscribers mostly are, in this case, it's human subscribers, but these subscribers can also be machine-to-machine communication. So it actually, these micropayment and revenue split mechanisms actually bring financial sustainability to any kind of system. You can have AI rewards rewarded. You can make it, well, you can
Make it attractive. Yeah.
think to it about everything you hear today. Think about it. Come back to Praveen, and ideally, I would like to have a list of doubts, challenges, opportunities, and questions to base upon in the beginning of January, when we go to the next phase of this series. Let's say.
Discussions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So just we are almost at the end of today. Because a challenge, like we mentioned before, the challenge is actually between decentralization and governance. Because the more you decentralize, the less you have the governance. So if you have to think upfront to all the possible cases in an ecosystem, it's so complex. And then still, I mean, it's again immutable. So there is a big governance question. If you do everything up front, or you have some flexibility, then you lose the immutable factor. But anyway, smart contracts are definitely key to it. And to trust, because the challenge is actually to be able to trust the system. It's not by listening to this presentation that suddenly you're going to trust everything I said. In some cases, you should not trust a system, believe me, but you should. We have legacy approach to gain trust to systems. If you have a bunch of code, which is a smart contract, which is a certain rule, before you trust it, all the parties have to ask an auditor, software qualification, testing, penetration testing, all different testing to make sure that this code is a certified functionality. And once all the parties agree, so there is a customer acceptance phase, everyone sign off, okay, we agree, we tested, this is the functionality, and this is the fingerprint of the logic. Again, this fingerprint is a stamp. From this moment, you have a unique fingerprint representing this logic, which is the contract. From this moment on, thanks to software testing and certification by legacy parties, combined with the stamp, the notary, which is also undisputable, a unique ID of your logic, and you can trust on it. And from that moment, you can trust the system. But it is one of the challenge of these kind of systems is to trust it. And trusting comes over software testing, qualification, and certification by traditional stakeholders in the space. Now, the last thing I want to touch upon, because
we are run out of time.
Yeah, I know. It's just I want to make a point that if we agree that data is the common factor, there is a big market infract, and it applies to Europe, it applies to United States, it also applies to India, it applies to all of us. So that's why I really want to touch upon this also, to allow people in your group to think about it. When this thing happened, March 2020 was a key moment in our, I think, in our current generation. It was when all these lockdowns happened. Normally IoT was, automation, and when you reflect on it on the supply chains, we have international supply chains. But then in March, the borders closed, and all these digital platforms who were interoperable between each other, they had to reroute. They had to find alternative suppliers. That's where a lot of things happened, and also a lot of people or a lot of things did not happen. because when the supply chains have to reroute to more local suppliers, they were in another platform. Another platform was speaking a different language. They have different vocabularies depending on whatever. It's a specific thing. I would like to invite you to go to farm2fork.market. I will go to it now. So it was a big case of lack of data interoperability.
Question, Tom.
What?
There's one question from Christy. How to get certified on IoT with blockchain?
How to get certified?
Yeah, I think she's asking on a course kind of thing on IoT on blockchain kind of certification or something like that.
But can you unmute her and let her ask the question, because it's unclear what is exactly asked.
She's on YouTube.
Yeah.
She's on YouTube, and I don't know how she can.
Yeah, true. I see. I don't really understand the question, but let me consider how to get certified.
She wants to be certified on IoT and blockchain services or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can share.
Is there a course you can recommend or something like that?
Yeah, there are some trainings. There are internationally there are some trainings, even online trainings, in which you can do exam and then you can have some sort of a certification. There are several certifications. It depends on what specific thing you want to be certified on. I mean, this is not my part. All do I give training to certification companies.
Got it.
So, but for myself, well, don't let yourself cheat by other, like, you have a lot of kind of fake certifications. I mean, it's so new that there is not such a thing like the certification authority or something on this space. I think biggest certification is to be involved in it, first of all, because you can even go to online trainings, but having boots on the ground and having practice, it's for me more important to understand what you do than to follow an exam. But you definitely have online certification, but I don't want to refer to one or another. I want to be objective.
Okay. All right, Tom, I think we should take a hard stop, because there might be people like the chairman wanting to leave and all that.
Yes.
Ram, we are trying to close, Ram.
But wouldn't you go like 10 minutes until then we have a round?
Actually, we were to close about 6 o'clock here. This is about 15 minutes before, and we already crossed 15 minutes on that. So never mind, we will continue with what you call our review of this first module, and then we will go to this the remaining, and you can add some more content on some more things, and we will also send you questions we get from the people, and some deliberations here. And thank you very much for a very detailed.
Okay. We'll time it better next time.
Yeah. Yes. 2 hours was long, but then we are not able to hold you even after 2 hours, because a lot of content you want to give us. Thank you very much for that. And
yeah, well, I will measure the time better next time, because my conclusion was actually that because the data discovery is so important, if you want to think about business models, we need to solve the data discovery first. So that was actually the closure of my thing. I lost some time on the way, but that's something we want to agree on. I ask everyone who sees this to engage with us.
Yes,
I'm preaching a public foundation. I'm not selling anything. I just want to have eye openers to people involved in any kind of vertical industry, because everyone suffers of this without even you know it. But this is actually what is between you and success, is the data. It's your data discovery.
That's right.
So just give it some time to digest. Yes. Reach out to Praveen or to the engineer group or to myself. on LinkedIn. It's my preferred platform.
That's
So
right.
please feel free to engage with us and to contribute, because we are all in this together. We are defining the new normal as we speak, and we have to go to economic recovery, and these are enabling technologies to do so. To let the technology work for the people, it's important. The people actually need our solutions now. So with this, I would like to close it. Thank you for the invitation, Praveen. Thank you also for the Institute to have me.
Ramdas is the president of the Institute, and he would like to say some words. Ramdas?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Tom D. I think you given the elaborate and then excellent this thing. I think you can talk even one day, whole day also. I think.
Yes, sir. That's the thing.
Okay, we'll prepare, and then next time, next this thing will arrange that. Maybe January, any one of as Praveen like. Huh? We'll discuss, and then I will let you know that.
Yes, please don't close the chat, because I want to have or save the chat so we can
Okay.
You want to save the chat? Just hold on.
I'm going to answer a few questions on the chat, so please don't close the Zoom yet.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the entire chat for you. And I'm going to send you by email.
Good. Okay. Thank you all for listening in.
Thank you.
We didn't lose a lot of people during the presentation, so somehow it was interesting.
Yes.
And as I said, well, we need to do it. We need to do it. So please engage with us, and thank you again for the opportunity. And see you next time.
Sure.
Have a great day.
Happy New Year and Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas for you and family. And Sam D. Block, who's already watching silently, say hi to Guy. And he must be so big. How old is he?
He's 11 years old. Oh. And honestly, he also follow me because he makes plans for the future. He show me sometimes like a smart building and ideas he has about, because he listened to me and he comes with new fresh ideas. So because honestly, this is going to take some time to begin.
Father.
We need the kids actually, because they will be the people who will be around their 30s when all these become full reality. So they are the ones actually who need to absorb it and stakeholders. So yeah, let's do it for them. Thank you all. And thanks for
Merry Christmas to the family. Safe stay at Belgium, and I look forward to catch up with you again in January.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tom?
Yes.
Shall I close it or?
Yes. I stopped the recording. It's good.
Okay.